Can you all hear us? Okay.
Microphone?
Now she can. Okay. And also the camera is not on. Let me stream. Okay, I hope you can all see us and hear us now. So, welcome everyone to the Hi Ladies Talk Evening. Hi, is it better? Kinda? Okay, cool. Okay, so welcome to another Pi Ladies Talk evening event. And this will be our schedule for tonight. So first of all, we have a little bit of delay. Sorry about that. But we'll introduce our community first. And then we'll let our amazing host, Gina AI and Spice Academy, introduce what they do as well. And then we will start with our first talk of the evening by the amazing people here from the Bundesdruckerei, which you will see later. And then we'll have a short break. And after the second talk, we'll have a networking event on site. Unfortunately, people online, you cannot join this time, but next time, please do join in person as well. Okay, so we are Pi Ladies Berlin, and we have a lot of chapters around the world, and we are an international mentorship group for marginalized genders, such as, but not limited to, non-binary people, trans people, and women in tech, with a focus on helping our community become an active participant and leader in the Python open source community. And all skill levels are welcome. Our mission is to promote, educate, and advance the diverse Python community through outreach, education, conference events, and social gatherings. We also aim to provide a friendly support network for gender minorities and a bridge to the larger Python world. And anyone with an interest in Python is definitely encouraged to participate.
My computer.
Okay.
Okay, now
Okay. Thank you, Maren. So PyLadies, but the Berlin chapter of PyLadies was founded in 2013. We have a member of 2,000 something people, which are most of them probably at home right now because it's winter, but we still have a lovely crowd here tonight and also online right now. So thank you guys for joining. And we currently have 6 chapters in Germany and are still growing. So do allow me to read you the code of conduct because we as organizers take this very seriously. So we believe knowledge is for all, and at the same time, our events aim primarily to empower gender minorities in the tech community. And by attending one of our events online and also in real life, you agree to our code of conduct. PyLadies is dedicated to providing a respectful, harassment-free community for everyone. We do not tolerate harassment or bullying of any community member in any form. Then a more exciting thing about us is we have regular monthly meetups with talks and workshops as well. And this is one of our monthly talk. And we also have set up events to get started with coding. And at a lot of our events, we want to connect people to each other so you're not alone in the Python community, and also to companies. So it gives you a chance to explore your career path or just to socialize and network. So why wait? Please join. We are not restricted to only female identifying community. Anyone who is willing to respect other space can join. So please do not hesitate. And you can either be a member, be a mentor, or also coach and host one of our workshops. So welcome. And we have a global Slack workspace. So please search on the Slack channel for the Berlin chapter if you live in Berlin. If not, there are also other chapters around the world. And another exciting thing is today is the 23rd. We have a few events coming up. So on the 27th of November, one of our amazing ladies, Noah, will be helping out with the setup for our Pandas open source workshop. So she wants us to also clarify that on Sunday, it's only the setup event, and the real contribution event will be on December the 1st, on Thursday next week in the evening. And on December the 5th, our other pilot lady, Jessica, will also be hosting another December members talk evening. So exciting, just 10, 12 days away, and then you have another members talk evening again to join. So please also participate if it interests you. And we would also really like to get some feedback from you, people who are on site and also online, to give us feedback so we can continue to improve. And if you like what we're doing, register to become a pilot as well. Then next, we would like to invite our amazing host for the next talk evening. First of all, we have Gina AI to talk to us about what they do and the amazing work they have done. So welcome, Isabel.
Cool. Okay, I'll do this before. Sorry, 1 second.
Right now, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So should I repeat my...
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Sorry. So you guys will have to bear with me. Sorry. So I'm Isabel for you guys online. I'm an engineer at Gina AI, and tonight I just want to quickly introduce you guys to Gina, what we do, a little bit about the company, and then also invite you to attend an annual event, which will just be off-site and offline, unfortunately. But yeah, anyone is welcome to join. So a little bit about Gina AI. We were founded in February 2020, so that's almost 3 years ago. We have a whopping 53 members spread across the world in 4 different continents, 3 different continents, 4 different offices in the States, obviously in Berlin, and then Shenzhen and Beijing. And during our funding, we raised a lot of investment, which has allowed us to do some really cool and exciting stuff. So I'll tell you a bit more about what we've been doing. So Gina AI is the MLOps platform for cross-modal and multimodal applications. And what do I mean by MLOps platform? So we try to support our users, or our clients, our users, from the ground up with multimodal data structures, all the way to fine-tuning models in the cloud and making them scale, and also deploying machine learning models and their applications in the cloud. We've been focusing mostly on 2 main areas, and we've become quite specialist or experts in these areas. First of all, neural search, which you can think of as information retrieval that is powered by deep learning. So we take your data points, we give them another representation using a machine learning model. And then, for example, if you're using a model like CLIP, which is inherently cross-modal or multimodal, you can embed your images as well as your text data, and then take those embeddings, compare them to each other, and thereby you can search semantically on your data. And it also allows you to search on any kind of modality, which is really exciting. Second of all, you've probably heard of creative AI. Gina's also been becoming an expert in this and hosting generative AI applications and deployments of these. So, for example, if you are wanting to search for a particular image, let's say a cat floating in space, drinking some bubble tea, and you want this picture to be really realistic, it's quite unlikely that you'll find this on the internet. I did not search for this, probably should have, but so if this data or this image does not exist, Gina's creative AI could potentially bring this to life for you and bring it into the world. Yeah, so this is really exciting content generation. So if you're listening to me and you're thinking, well, where do I fit in here as a programmer, as a user? So if you're a first-time novice user, you might want to look at Dockerei, which is a data structure that we support, that we keep current, that hosts inherently multimodal data, which is really awesome if you're sick and tired of unimodal representations or data structures. Secondly, for serious developers and professional users, you might want to look at Gina, which makes search applications really easy to deploy in the cloud. And last of all, maybe you are an enterprise or maybe even want to be a paid user. You have a whole bunch of data. You don't want to care about how your applications are deployed from the ground up. You might want to have a look at our Gina AI cloud apps. That might be interesting for you. So if you take a look at our GitHub, you'll see that there are a whole bunch of projects and repositories that we keep updated from the ground up. So looking at Dockerei and Gina and FineTuner, these are core frameworks that we support. And then we also have some applications that build on top of this infrastructure, such as Clip as Service or Gina Now, which I recommend you definitely have a look at. I think I will skip this slide for the sake of keeping things short and skip right onto our annual event, which is happening on the 2nd of December. And everyone is welcome to join. It is happening in person, so there will be no live stream of this event. But anyone can join, and there will be a book release. We are releasing a book written by Gina employees. There will be some tech talks, and it is also our Christmas party, so it'll be a lot of fun. And also we have a slot for anyone who wants to present a lightning talk at this event. So I recommend if you want to, you can scan this QR code and send us some proposals to give a short lightning talk at this event. Great. Yeah, also if you want to, obviously have a look at our GitHub and give it a star if you like it. And we are also always welcoming new members on our Slack community, so if you feel free to join us. Cool. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, and also everybody, we prepared a very beautiful spec for all of you. Feel free to grab it. Some of them have our notebooks, some of them don't. So just find the one with notebooks.
Okay, thank you so much, Isabel, for such a lovely presentation of Gina AI. And next, we will have Spice Academy, our second host, to join us and present what they do. Just give us a second. Oops.
Okay, I think people can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everybody to our all the programs that we have, they're like from 9 to 12 weeks long. So we have data science. You are muted?
Not anymore. The online takes a few seconds.
Okay. So okay, I'm gonna stop. So we have like the web development, data science, data analytics, which is like 9 weeks long, and soon we will also have the UX design. So our community has around like 1,300 people. So with every month a little bit more. How actually does this work? So as I said, it's like a 12-week or like 9-week boot camps. It's basically a full-time learning. So our like students, like in the end, they dream code. So we start from 9 until like 18 hours. And also our curriculum is basically like a project based. So what they do, every week they build a little bit like, they build like a different project. Maximum we have 18 or like 16 students in the class. And so here also you can see where our like Python works. They are like in some like big companies. So now if you're curious, maybe someone from here or people online, so we have also an Instagram account, and here is the email address where you can also apply. Yeah, that's for me. Thank you.
The sound for online is okay?
It's okay right now.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us. We are very happy to be here. And
So it's from this computer and it's on mute right now.
But like the online is actually mute. It needs to be.
Yes, no, it's good now. Yeah, thanks.
so yeah, another second time. So thanks for inviting us. We are from the Bundesdruckerei, and I wanna first of all very shortly dive you a little bit. What is Bundesdruckerei and what are we doing? Because nobody really knows. So Bundesdruckerei is actually a startup with a 250 years background. So let's consider us being a grown-up. We started in the printing service area. So we are mainly known for printing the identity card, printing value, the money, what everybody has in our pockets. So everybody from us has an identity card or a product from Bundesdruckerei. But since 2018, or actually since 2005, when we started to introduce the electronic passport, we became a little bit more modern, so to say, and entered the digital area, meaning we produce hardware and software, which is helping us, or which helped us in the very beginning, also to secure our products. Since 2018, we focus more and more on developing digital services, and mainly for the public sector. So we feel a little bit like a startup because in the area what we are working in, this is pretty new to our company. But again, with a background of 250 years. What is also a little bit unknown is that a lot of our products, they are invisible to the public. For example, everybody knows the Corona numbers. We are producing them. We are in the background of these, and nobody really knows that. Today we are here with our team, with my colleagues Balint and Bernd. Want to give you a little bit of insight what we are building and operating and developing, which is a data and analytics platform. But before we come to this, and small figures, so we are roughly 3,500 people, mainly here in Berlin, more than 800 in the tech department, which we are all in. We have over 4,200 patents, and we have, of course, our German ID card is still our, let's say, money driver, but the second biggest is the secret digitalism solutions, which we are all in, and we are in the area of the data management solutions. And just a slight overview. So the main interesting is the data management for us. We are all data and analytics lovers. We consider ourselves data scientists, NLP, machine learning engineers, and want to give you a little bit of background. So as I said, we are operating and developing a data and analytics platform in an on-premise setup. Why we are working in an on-premise setup and not in a hyperscaler like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud is because our public agencies or public customers, they deal with high security data, which no standard is currently developed in the main public cloud. So we are doing everything from scratch. We have servers in the racks in our Bundesdruckerei computer center. We cluster them together with Kubernetes. We have a lot of enablement services, and on top, we do everything what a data and analytics platform should do like. So we have data pipelines, we have a central data lake, data warehouse, we have dashboarding and reporting services, enabling and featuring the self-service BI approach. We have tailor-made Java and JavaScript application in order to visualize the data, but also, and this is what the department around Balint is doing, we have a huge data analytics and data science team, which is helping our customers gaining insights out of our data. And who is our customer? I can be so open to share you this. We are working for the Federal Foreign Office, so das Auswärtige Amt, and they are using our platform for crisis prevention. This is one very nice use case, which is a little bit different than conversion rate optimization for startups. So we are all happy to work for this area, and right now I hand over to my colleague, Bernd.
Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to introduce you what challenges do we see, and of course we'll mainly speak about Federal Foreign Office, but ideally I want you to give you a quick preview what are the usual challenges. As Holger already introduced, we are building a platform for them, but why is that? We could ask like, hey, why they don't build their own platform? Why they have to come to us and build them for them? Well, the big issue is always in the structures and the political sense. First of all, most users, of course, and most government persons are non-technical. So most decision makers don't know if they say, hey, we should do data analytics, what does it actually mean? So you have to guide them to say, like, what do you need? And second of all, any solution that you create has to be really broken down in a very simplistic way. The second of all, because how the structures in government set up, most of them don't even have the infrastructure, or they don't have the internal IT to support them to do it. So let's assume they just built, they want to do data analytics. They would go to the internal IT and ask, hey, can you provide me some tools? Can I install Python maybe somewhere that I can do anything? And usually the answer will be no, because you would have to have access to some GitHub repositories, or you would have to come to some internet connection. And usually the default answer is no. So they come to us to say, hey, can you build me something where I can actually work with as a person who wants to work with data and has analytics? So we build them for that. But of course, the other problem is that the IT doesn't have the capacity to even build, even let's say they build the infrastructure, then the second question comes, security. Can you build it in a secure way? And this is the big challenge that comes to us, that even though they want to do data analytics, the challenge is, of course, most of the topics, projects, and the data have to be secured and have to be some way protected at least. But at the same time, because they're a government, they have to have full transparency towards the public eye. So there is a lot of inquiry about our platform. They are asked in a public way. And of course, the other thing is that anything that creates any solution, let's imagine that we use some machine learning models, they have to be transparent later on, because we can expect that at some level the public will ask about them and like, how did you do it? Why is it like this? Well, how did you approach it? And we are trying to be at least fully transparent in this way. But of course, we cannot be like in how the actual platform is built up, unfortunately. Okay, and I want to give over to my colleague, Bernd, like what data do we see?
So we get to handle a multitude of data, be it just general textual data, because government agencies work with a lot of documents, and those usually come in PDF or Word document flavors, which gets us into all kind of different issues. And then, of course, you get to handle time series of economical data or map data, so as in geolocation data. And more often than not, you get asked to build a dashboard of that, combine several data sources, and make it easier for the analysts to understand what is going on, and how to maybe also filter and prioritize certain aspects of it, because it's hard to handle, for instance, documents of 150 pages that suddenly come in because there has been executive summary or something. So, and you also have curious data. For instance, this is a 100-year-old document that shows the diplomatic relations between Germany and Latvia. It's in Latinized Latvian, so it's not even actual Latvian, so you're missing all of the accents. How would you index something like this? How do you make something searchable? Just think about it for a moment. It's a little bit non-obvious, and thankful it doesn't happen too often, but it does, and you get those queries. So of course we handle semantic search, and more often than not, not only get to ask how to find documents, make them searchable, but also if you could perhaps automatically answer a given set of recurring questions. One of them might be, is this document of value to me? Is it interesting among all of the dozen of documents I get? Can you somehow classify that? Or can you perhaps make a trend visible out of the documents to see if there is something that should be of concern to me? So for instance, we said that we're working with early warning systems. So perhaps there is a crisis in a certain African state that they want to be aware of. It's our task to enable them to see something with a dashboard, textual analytics, all of the data I mentioned before, and predict those events. And it's like to see what's priority, it's good to see what's their client.
Exactly. So a bit back to our client. Of course, we like to bash that, hey, governments are old-fashioned, maybe they're not the best in digitalization, but it doesn't have to always be. It really varies from department to department. And this is important to understand, that we had luck that our current client is our department. They want to have change. They want to digitalize, strategize. They want to improve on it. And one thing that happened newly in the government is that they had a digital strategy, which clearly describes that, hey, every department or every bigger government agency has to have data analytics or data analytics platform available to work with them, which means to say, okay, we don't just have some people randomly that want to innovate. You have to innovate as a government. And this is slowly changing over time, because when we started this project, it was like, oh, we are the trendsetter. You are the first one who actually wants to do analytics in an actual way, or data science. But slowly we get there that each of the governments are building up their platform, or they all want to have a platform to work with, which that's why they come to us, generally speaking. And that's why I want to say, like, not all departments are the same, because you can have a department which they, from very beginning, they say, hey, we only hire people who can code. That's great, but of course you have still the old-fashioned way where they like only work with Outlook. Maybe they've seen an Excel sheet once in their lifetime, but mostly they just write emails. So of course that's why they say, okay, they need to have an infrastructure to work with, and of course they need to have the expertise to work with. Of course the expertise is hard to build up, so usually they come to us, and then we try to help them, guide them what kind of approaches they can do, or even just to teach them like, hey, this is how you can do it yourself, and we provide you the tools to make it. But we have the luck, and this is the project we are coming from our team, is a preview project, which their main goal is the conflict prediction. What does it mean? So that means that this is the department for the Foreign Office and for Germany, which is in charge of predicting conflict events around the world. So that means that imagine you have high officials they want to say, hey, what are the current crises happening around the world? Or what escalation of crises do you see around the world? And this department said, you know what, we need data for that, we need analytics. They grab a bit of their budget and said, we want to do it properly. And for that, we built up a platform and we built up their solutions. And right now, we are in charge of it to create the solutions of how we do conflict prediction. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you exactly in detail, even though I'm happy to talk about it in some level. But the problem is, the point is that at least there is a change in the government that they want to at least do it in a sense. And I'm very proud to say, like, okay, there is good solutions for that. We are working with research department. It's not just an empty box where somebody, did one Excel sheets. We are heavily working with research institutions, and we're working with the public sector a lot together. Like, how can we predict crises, and how can we even give like insight to prevent crises? What expertises are we bringing to the table? Because, of course, it's a complex topic. We are doing a lot of modeling, of course. That's why we have Bernd, for example. He is for NLP tasks. I'm doing generally data analytics. But, of course, we have a lot of backend structure because almost always everything that we create has to be broken down into a single visualization which a decision maker can understand and take it with him and think about it. Because you can imagine that most of the presentations or most of the solutions that are presented, they're maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Because, you can see the politicians who are going around the world, they don't have much time, so you have to make it very precise, very concise. And this is a difficult task because conflict and NLP tasks are not easy, and are not easy to understandable, so that's always a challenge. So that's why we are heavily focused on visualization too, because at the end, everything has to be visualized in some level or the other. And of course, we have geo parts too, because as you can imagine, for an office, everything is geo-located in some level or the other. Exactly. But we brought today some examples that we created, and we can openly talk about it. One of them is the Fragewesen. What does it mean in Fragewesen? From it, I was specialized today on the Kleinanfragen, but we're doing all the other Anfragen. Basically, the question is that the government has to be transparent. So that means that any kind of public person or politician can inquire on the current governed party, what are you doing? What are the budgets you're using? What projects are you running? How they're doing? So these are all questions that are gathered together, usually in a document, and they have to be answered by the government because the whole point is to be transparent. So that means if you have a local politician that you want to ask something about the government, you can send them out and they will gather these questions and they'll ask the current government, what is happening or what are you doing? This is usually, most of them are budget related to say like how much money you spend for specific things. But the whole point is these questions are gathered together. Now the challenge is, what is the challenge in this kind of Anfragen? Yeah, you have to imagine you have some office workers, they get these questions on a daily basis. And first of all, they don't know if this got already answered on some level. Second of all, as you can imagine, the more digitalized we become, the more questions, easier it is to gather questions. So as you can see on the chart, the number of questions or inquiries is exploded. And the third problem is, of course, they usually have only 2 weeks to answer. So imagine the question is getting asked until the answer has to be already sent out, only 2 weeks for an office clerk. And of course, it's not the only inquiry they have. And of course, the length of this can be up to 50 sub-questions. So the question was, okay, how can we help these office clerks to make their life easier? And we gathered to say, okay, we create you an application. Because first of all, we have most of the documents, we can get the inquiries, we can get the Anfragen and gather them in the system. Then the question was, okay, let's start with a POC. And we started, okay, we built with Python some application. Can we make it searchable? Can we make it for you easier at least to have an overview of what's happening? Then the second part was, okay, can we gather all the documents that you need to answer? Because most of them you want to answer a question, but you need to have the reference document to be able to answer them. No? So can you create some reference system to them to how can you answer them? Then the third part is that what happens a lot is that usually these inquiries are follow-up questions. That can I have the previous inquiries? Can I check for similar questions? Can I help out the office clerk to gather all the necessary information? Because at the end of the day, of course, the office clerk is in charge of the answer. So it cannot be automated. It has to be a fully validated manual way, but we can at least support all the process them to gather this information for it. We added a lot of features over time. So we started with some Django application that we just built up with the infrastructure behind it. We made it more productionized. At the end of the day, the whole point is that we able to upload all the documents they need because they have all their internal budget documents in which reference to specific questions. Then we have created a lot of entities and reference links to say like a network of documents, because usually, let's assume we had a crisis with the war. They asked about it, hey, how much money did Germany spend for helping out in Ukraine? That's a common question, by the way, as you can imagine. And of course, then we created links on all the documents which are related to this so that they can easier gather this information. Then, of course, we did a lot of search engine optimization so that it's easier for them to use the tool and to gather all the information. Of course, then the other challenge was the parsing of documents, because many of the documents, as you saw in the previous example, are not necessarily nicely digitalized. Usually they are very messy, hand notes and whatnot in it. So it's very awful to handle. Then some similarity search, obviously. And then, of course, department classifier. This is a very important feature at the end. Why? Because the clerk gets the question, but usually another department has to answer it, because they are just in charge of answering the question, but they are not in. They don't have maybe the specific knowledge of what they need to answer. We brought in a second example, which maybe, I hope it's more exciting than mine. We will do it in a more technical way, and then we have the political archive. Bernd, you want?
The part where we actually have Python code on slide, but
yeah, exactly. Because if we're already here for Python, then we want you to have some Python.
No, but as I'm tech analyst, I'm dealing, of course, with all the documents or all documents. So we have the political archive, which is next to the federal archive, the next largest archive, handling all the documents since basically the beginning of something that looks like Germany. So the North German Confederation in 1867. And most of it is unclassified as of now, at least, well, up till the last 30 years, of course. And it's like they had this OCR service in 2016 digitalizing the 10% of their most popular documents, which helped them, of course, when their reading room got shut down during the pandemic, because now everybody can use the search engine they have and finish their master's thesis in political science, hopefully with that. That happens actually a lot. So we're tasked with indexing those documents, and you can see on the right, those documents have, well, not just text on it. It's like, this is text, so it's all lowercase. The German umlauts don't exist, so this is all UE and everything, and you have stamps on it. You have written marks on it. You have everything in it, and of course it's German, French, English, you name it. So, and you get tasked with cleaning up the OCR, so you see like the lowercase w got mangled, and you still have to figure out the word. And the task is, can you somehow come up with an index so that people can use your search engine and find everything they need, find, for instance, names of foreign federal agents. And so it means you need to build up a dictionary. And since all the documents are full of OCR artifacts, you can't just do sentence analysis because your parser breaks down. So what do? Well, you could, for instance, turn Wikipedia into a dictionary. So you just crawl the entire Wikipedia and say, Spacey, could you please get me all of the nouns and all of the proper nouns? But important caveat before, you need to figure out the language of the documents and the encoding. So in case you're doing this on a Linux machine and you have Windows documents and you don't want to get your characters all mangled.
So you have, of course, a pipeline for every language. It's important to get this right. And of course, even the language detector from Chrome in this case is not always accurate. And you get funny detections that you just throw out because you know it's not Icelandic. So in the end, we managed to do all the fuzzy matching. Imagine you have to match every word in the document against several million entries in your dictionary, containing basically every person ever lived, or at least is in Wikipedia, so someone somewhat popular, and all the nouns recognized. And we ended up with a list of several thousand words per archival band. So like, say, 400 pages give you 8,000 words that people can search on, and we hope it makes their life easier. You can just create the archival server for that. And with that, and over to the open challenges.
Okay, so we introduced you today like 2 examples, but of course we have many more tasks and problems that we are trying to tackling in our team. So first of all, text analysis is always a relevant problem because, like said before, we have lots of text data. It's government. It's always something text related. You have to have some kind of understanding. So what are usual features that, for example, right now we got like yesterday an inquiry. Hey, I have 150 pages document. My task is every week to summarize it down to 1 page. Can you help me with it? And of course, then the question is like, how do you do it? What is the process? What is the logic? How do you build ontology for that? Can you build insights from it? Can you create maybe text snippets to help them to cover it? But of course, we cannot replace, of course, the human, like the clerk, because at the end they are responsible for the answer. So most of it is always in some level of support of how they can do it. Second, of course, trend analysis. I told you before that we do, one of the main tasks, of course, is conflict prediction, which we use a lot of text data and news data. And one of the topics that came up is like, hey, if you're already using it for prediction for conflict events, can you not create maybe something for some decision maker where you can show the trends for specific topics happening? So imagine like 2 years ago, like Corona came up, can you see a trend? Can you see any kind of sentiment? What is changing over time in this trend? It's not necessarily like you imagine like a Twitter hashtag, but the whole point is that you have some decision maker that can understand what's happening around, and usually localized for the specific part, because usually most office clerks have a specific country they're in charge of. So they say like, okay, like for example, in Egypt, what is in Egypt, the current trends happening for them? And like described before, most of are visualized, but we're trying to create applications for them. At the end of the day, we're trying to create customized applications, which for specific departments or clerks helps to reduce their job immensely. Why? Because like I said, if they only work with Word and maybe sometimes Excel sheets, there is a lot of potential of how you can improve their process and work. Of course, other challenges that we are dealing with is we're already building machine learning pipelines, and we always working on it and tweaking in it and building the platform, expanding on it. And that's one of the challenges. We always work on it. How can we make our, like all the text, build it in a model from it? How can we bring it in production? We have a few pipelines already set up, but of course, we're always working how can we improve it in our MLOps principles. I wanted to give over to Holger, to our last part. What are the opportunities in the BDR?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I hope we gave you some little bit of feeling what we are doing behind Bundesdruckerei. So we're actually tackling very interesting challenges. I really need to say it like this. And of course, like always, we're looking for talents to join us. We're not the only one searching for good talents. We have NLP challenges, we have computer vision challenges, we have a strong and powerful GPU in our network and cluster. So come and play with us if you're interested. We are here the whole evening, but also fan and the community can definitely refer us in case you want to be in contact with us. So thanks for listening to us. Have a perfect afternoon or evening. And yeah, see you soon around somewhere.
Questions?
Yes. Is that right? So let's have another round of applause for Bundesdruckerei, Holger, Bernd und Balint. And now we have some time for a Q&A, but because the online audience probably cannot hear that clearly what the on-site questions are, so if one of you is answering, can you please repeat the question again so the online audience can also hear you?
No problem.
Okay, so online audience, you can also post your question in the comment, and we will try to answer your question, and also the people on site as well.
Sure. Thank you very much. So, do we have any questions? Yes, they're in the back.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the boring content. Because I directly thought of like Kleinanzeigen, which was shut down.
Yeah.
Do you have plans, or would it be possible to somehow like open data, rise, I don't know, make some of the open and then communities could fit on it? Because
Sure.
I understand that maybe your application is not.
Yeah. So I repeat the question. The question was that since we are doing already an application for Kleine Anfragen, and there was a website which was open source, kleineanfrage.net, I think, will we do the data available? First of all, yes, anyway, because it's already public, the data anyway. So there is a GitHub from the government, which is already accessible all of it. It's usually 2 to 3 weeks delayed, because till they get it to the process and actually, but the government already has a GitHub for all the talks, all the Anfragen, even for every governmental speech ever given in the parliament, they are all publicly available. We are using that, for example, usually as a reference because that's the clean version. Usually that's already the cleaned up version. Of course, most of the daily changes we get with the Kleine Anfragen are the messy part with the hand notes where it's not clear yet, because we are dealing with the data which is right now happening, most of it. But of course, all the data which you're asking that you want to use in a clean way, they're already available. They are usually, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks delayed, depending. If you want, I can show you the GitHub repo where it is. But I think you can just search for DIP government Git. Yes. Any other questions? I will check the chat maybe. Can I?
There's a question in the chat saying, do you have connections with entities doing similar things in Denmark or at European level for that matter?
Okay, so I'm not sure the question is directed to which exactly direction. I assume for the conflict part at least. For the conflict prevention, yes, we are working with multiple research institutes and other governments actually, because this is a whole network of usually people who are interested in conflict prevention. So yes, we are working, for example, a lot with Denmark. We are working with Scottish. We have actually other universities in Germany which are actively doing conflict prevention. But we are specifically hired for doing it for the Foreign Office. So the Foreign Office itself has a huge network. And we are using that network, of course, to work with researchers, because conflict is not just the simplest thing. It's a number. There is a lot of philosophy behind it. What do you mean by conflict? Because for a decision maker, if you just tell them, oh, we have 1,000 conflicts, what does it mean? Does it mean more? Is it people dying? Is it like a war happening? There is a lot of differentiation. That's why it's a big research community behind it, which we actively work with and meet on a regular basis. Other questions? Yes?
How many end users use your applications?
Okay, so the question was how many end users do we have? So it's hard to say because we have, for other teams, there are applications which are meant for the general office clerk, which basically imagine that we have an application which is meant to gather just general data which anyone from the office have. Those are other teams doing, I think, I don't know, 150 recurrent user definitely. But our applications, which we do in data analytics space, they're usually very specialized because either we are targeting a specific decision makers, like 2 to 3 decision makers, or we are targeting one department which is made up from 5 to 10 people for their specific job. Like for example, the Kleine Anfrage is a specific department which are dealing on a daily basis with this. So we are targeting them specifically, and we're very closely working with them to, hey, how can we improve your daily job? So I don't know, like it's broad, but it depends from application to application, I would say still. Other questions? Yes.
You mentioned that you often deal with very sensitive data, and I imagine that you have to handle that very delicately and securely. But on the other hand, you also mentioned that you have to be really transparent about the processes and pipelines that you deal with. So I wonder if those two things are ever in conflict. That makes your job hard.
Constantly. So the question was the trade-off between being openly and transparent as a government, but at the same time working with sensible secure data. So the thing is that it depends what is the case. If we create an application which is used by some office clerks, most of the time, if there is an inquiry for that, there is no problem to open up. So yeah. So first of all, what do I mean by transparent? Transparent most of the time means that if we have some specific algorithms or models built, decision makers have to be able to fully understand if they want to. There are some who are actually interested, most of them not necessarily, but we are using most of the time some kind of transparency in a way, either the explanation of what we do. Now, what does it mean? The public can inquire on most of the things. So for example, you can inquire about kleine Anfragen. It's an open thing. I think it was already inquired a few times specifically. So the thing is that usually the solutions are open in some level, but the methodology, maybe that's not open for public. So, or like, especially if you use some sensitive data with it, so that definitely is not open. But maybe the solution itself can be made public. But most of the time, of course, the government itself has to decide if they want to make it public or not. So that's why we have to build on-premise platform. That's why we cannot use AWS, because we have a very high level security that we have to, level of security of conduct that we have to follow. Like it has to be highly secure. Not only specific people can have it, multiple background checks to people who can do it. It has to be only on-premise, the infrastructure. So there's a lot of long list of requirements that we have to fulfill, especially on an infrastructure level, just to work with this data. Other questions? Please.
In one of your examples, we use Wikipedia as the main knowledge base to check out the notes, which really works well for many governments. But you do with new events, like I think there was a time like Corona wasn't in Wikipedia, but now it's like, or like new singers or songwriters. So how do you handle these new notes?
Well, first of all, most of the data which we use in active production applications, they all have production level pipelines. So that means it's not only our team who's building. We have a specific data management team, which is nothing else than just to productionize data, because there has to be highly accessible, it has to be loaded regularly. I think we have scheduled jobs, so most of the data we do it on a daily or weekly basis update, depends on how necessary it is or how much change happened. We don't actually do online stream because there was never a case to do like actual streaming, because most of the text data, if you load it in buckets, it's enough. But like I said, we have a full team, which is nothing else that has to productionize data for our applications. When I mean full team, I mean a bigger team. Other questions? Please.
How big is your team then?
So my team, specifically data analytics team, we are currently 14 people. And like I said, we are doing a lot of different expertise, from front-end development, geo-analyst, full stack, NLP expert, like my colleague here, DevOps, we have machine learning engineers, like data analysts. So it's a bit of full stack, like very cross-functional in a sense, because we see that there is this need to fully cover the needs of the client. Because like I said, most of this thing has to be visualized. Most of the problems, you need some data analytics or data science background to handle them. Then you need some backend to clean up the data, but usually we give it over to the other team to productionize it for us. But to start off, we need like a very cross-functional team. And the data management team, I think it's around 15, 12 people.
So yeah, like Balint said, so the data analytics and text analytics team is around 14 people, but growing steadily. And overall, next year we will cross the 100 in our whole department.
Yes.
On this platform.
So as you can see and hear, we are big and getting only bigger in that sense. Other questions? Is there anything in the chat maybe, or?
No,
Okay.
Questions, folks?
You can talk to me afterwards, obviously.
Oh yeah, not
feel
questions.
free.
So for the attendee in person, we will have a networking event where you can grab something to drink or eat, and then also approach our people from Bundesdruckerei here. So thank you again from Holger and Balint and Bernd.
Thank you.
So right now we will have a 5 minutes break. So online people will be shutting the screen for 5 minutes, and the people on site will have a chance to go to the toilet and have a drink. Yes, then see you guys soon.
Okay. And now I can also share my slides, right? Yeah.
Fine, can you check that? Can someone online send a message? Yeah. Everything's good?
It should work right now because there was a lagging.
Sound missing online?
Listening? Okay.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Works. Okay.
It works. Okay, nice. Good. Then let me introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Free Proy, and she's a data scientist and CEO for Correlate, a data for good network. And she will be presenting on data for good, using your data science skills for the social good. So, welcome.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm a bit envious of you all having food. Yeah. But I will catch up later. Yeah, so my name is Free, pronounced like free beer. Someone asked me once. Yeah, my pronouns are they, them. German pronouns are also listed here. I have a background in political science, master in social and economic data analysis, and worked 2 years in IT consulting, and I co-founded this thing Correlate in 2015, which I will talk about today. And originally I'm an R person because I come from political science, so that's what we use there. But I've also used Python quite a bit, especially during my IT consulting work. And yeah, I looked up 2 tweets from myself, also a way to plug my Twitter while it's still there. So back in 2015, I was definitely enjoying learning Python. Looked really clean. Yeah, nowadays I have like a love-hate relationship, I think, because if someone can please help me fix my Python installation, that would be great. Yeah, I don't know. It just, yeah, it rarely works for me. But yeah, I don't want to talk about Python environments. I want to talk about Correlate and doing data for good and how you can also do data for good with your skills. So this is mostly targeted towards data scientists, but I hope everyone can take something away from this talk. So who's Correlate? We are Germany, but also Europe-wide network of over 2,200 data scientists who want to improve the world through data science. That's a bit abstract. So what do? We kind of have 3 pillars. We do those data for good projects, and that's typically why people come to us, because they want to use their skills for social good. So you might be working in a startup or at a consulting company like I did, and you might be doing those projects at work, and it's, I don't know, for a DAX concern or something. So, and then you think, okay, maybe I also want to do something which is like maybe profiting society a bit more. So we do those pro bono data science projects where we connect people like you, volunteers, with nonprofit organizations who need help with data science problems. And at the same time, it's like a win-win situation because all those projects also have a strong focus on learning. So our goal is not that you do free work. It's more like it's a learning opportunity for you, and the nonprofits get some help with data science. So this is one thing we do. We also have, like, education is very important. So we also try to empower actors from nonprofits with data literacy, like basic data literacy skills, so that they can do easy analyses by themselves. So that's something that we do. We have an R course specifically targeted towards nonprofit people, but we also do a lot of internal education, so peer-to-peer workshops and stuff like that. And we are this network of data scientists who want to use their skills for social good. So there's not only stuff that I do as an employee and my colleague does as an employee. There's a lot of stuff happening because our volunteers work in those projects, but also work in other initiatives. And I will come to that later. Yeah, some numbers. So the first number is already different from the one on the first slide, so that's not really good. Shows the importance of data pipelines, but unfortunately Google Slides is not so good with that. Yeah, so 2,200 data analysts or 2,400, depends on how you count it. We have like, I would say 30 to 40 volunteers who are a bit more involved in like the organization. They run our local chapters, or they are doing our podcasts and stuff like that. We have done 70 of those data for good projects that I mentioned. I will give some examples in a minute. With a lot of nonprofits, like Caritas is a big one, although we tend to work with smaller nonprofits because at some point it's like, well, they can also pay someone for this, and we don't want to take away paid labor. So a lot of the nonprofits that we work with are maybe not so well known, but they're still very cool and they have a lot of impact that we want to help amplify. And we also have those local chapters in Germany and in Europe. So here in Berlin, we also have a local chapter, so you can also check this out. Yeah, so I will mostly talk about those data for good projects today, but I will also tell you a bit more about how to get involved at Correlate. So I brought some examples, 2 Python examples, which are very cool because every time we use Python, it's for like machine learning stuff. And we don't do a lot of machine learning projects because if you can imagine, like maybe you have been involved with a nonprofit, you have been part of the soccer club in your youth. Nonprofits are not like the ideal candidates for big data or machine learning or AI. They typically don't have a lot of data. So if we do machine learning or AI, we typically do it with like open data or sensor data or something like that. And in this case, we worked together with Cargo Rocket that was came out of a hackathon, and they won some prize money, and they wanted to build like a routing system tailored to cargo bikes. And yeah, so to promote this idea of sustainable mobility. And our team kind of worked together with them and supported them with that by classifying open data of roads to assess whether the surfaces are good, medium, or not suitable for cargo bikes. Because cargo bikes definitely might have like a different requirements when it comes to road quality, because they're a bit heavier than normal bikes and also a bit wider. And they used images from Mapillary, which is, I think, like an open data source for images from roads. Yeah, and this was actually done with this thing called neural networks, which you might have heard about. And this is like the only use case ever that we have found for deep learning in our work, but it was pretty cool. And you can check out like the map with the index that they developed on this website, cargorocket.de. Unfortunately, because it was like a hackathon thing, they did not really build the app in the end, I think. But the map is pretty cool. So this is something that we did. Also, like a project with Python was with the Bee Observer, which is a citizen science project. Citizen science is where normal citizens become active in science. And here it was with beekeepers. And so beekeepers, but also maker, like makerspace people, the people who build things, and researchers, they work together on a digital beehive. So each beehive would get like a sensor or multiple sensors measuring things like humidity, weight, and temperature. And so there was actually a lot of data for once. And our team trained a machine learning model to see, like, to detect anomalies in those beehives, to basically use those data to, see whether the beehive might not be doing so well, to warn the beekeepers. And the impact, beekeepers can hopefully react faster to problems, and more bees are obviously very important for the ecosystem. And here I linked, I I think we will share the slides probably, but you can also find this if you look it up on YouTube. It's Correlate the Observer. Then you will find like a longer talk about this project from the project team. And I also brought some other examples which are in R, which is maybe not so interesting here, but it also shows like the more of the daily business or the more typical projects that we do at Correlate. So a lot of stuff that we do has to do with automation, because time and money, but also time are like the critical resource in the nonprofit world. And and automation can just help with gaining time back that you can then use for more useful things than just doing the same thing all over again, right? And here we work together with the World Shop Association, like the umbrella association of the world shops, like Weltläden for the Germans. Those are places where you can buy fair products. And they do this feedback survey with like all those 300 member shops. And previously, like there were employees who would manually create like a feedback report for each of those shops. So someone was going in Word and copy pasting things from Excel. So for 300 shops, right? And that's a lot of time. And so our team, we automated that with R Markdown, which is basically like Jupyter Notebook, and wrote like a wrapper, and then it was like, and so here this citation from Annegret says it really nicely. So it took weeks before, and with this code, it now works in 2 hours. That's a huge improvement for her. So she now has saved a lot of time that she can spend on more useful things that will help the workshops. Also, like a project that I really like because it shows that you can have like quite nice impact with very little data is this project that we did with Mare Liberum, which is a nonprofit that monitors the observance of human rights in the Aegean Sea. I hope I said this correctly. And the goal is to document human rights violations, such as pushbacks. This is when refugees are pushed back and they are not saved from the water. And this is a human rights violation. And so they had this like very little data set, and it was in in a Google Sheet. And our team in Hamburg, so this was a local chapter project, they just did some nice data visualizations for their annual report, which they publish on their website. So instead of just having like a lot of text, they now also have like some very nice and concise data visualizations. And at the same time, they also gave some feedback on how they could manage the data better, because a lot of times when we work with nonprofits, we have like very messy Excel files. And so this is a good feedback mechanism to also empower them to have better data. Yes. And then I will skip this. So in summary, what I think maybe you also, especially in comparison to the previous talks, the technological challenges are very different when you work with nonprofits. So often it's not about using the most cutting edge technology, but about finding the technology that creates a result or a solution that is useful, that is sustainable, and which has positive impact. So it's not like we go there and then we say, oh yeah, let's do, I don't know, AI or machine learning, because most of the time that's not something that is useful to them. Our board chairman, Johannes, he once said like nonprofits have a pretty good bullshit detector when it comes to that. So if you go to a nonprofit and you say, yeah, I will do like a deep learning model, and they will be like, okay, and what does it bring me? And so oftentimes we don't use the most cutting edge technology, but it's still fun. And why don't we do that? Because there are like constraints in this space. So this is not true for all nonprofits, but in a lot of cases, there's no dedicated IT personnel, or there's only one volunteer running like the whole thing. There's Excel instead of databases, so a lot of Excel. There's no servers, so you might not even have server infrastructure to deploy things to. So you need to get creative with that. There's no or little money to spend on the project, because this is also like a new topic for a lot of nonprofits. So they don't have budget for this, right? Why would like the football club spend money on a data project? So it's right now, oftentimes we're in the stage of showing people what they can do with data science and how they can improve their work. And so maybe in the future they will have money for this. And there's also often like not a lot of time to really get into the topic of data science and to be able to maintain the solutions. Although we are working on this with our data literacy courses. And also something very particular about the German nonprofit sector, they have really high standards when it comes to GDPR compliance. Oftentimes they have a lot of like high ethical standards for themselves, which I find really good, but it's also like, yeah, they will be very skeptical towards like US tools or just using something and just throwing their data in some random cloud. So GDPR compliance is really important. So what does it mean for the technologies that we use or for the solutions that we create? So for example, like reports, PDF or HTML reports are just something that you can send them, right? You can send them the PDF or you can send them the HTML instead of like a dashboard where you have to spin up a server and then someone has to maintain the thing. So this is something that it's always like a clash because our volunteers really like building dashboards. But then I'm always like, no, who will maintain it in the end, right? I cannot maintain dashboards for like 10 nonprofits. We are also only a nonprofit and we don't have people for that. So code also should be like not super complex. So you don't have to like whip out like the whole, I don't know, just rather keep it simple. So if we have someone who might be motivated to maintain this in the future so that they have an easier time doing so, right? If you just maybe have one script and then you really document it very nicely, they have a chance of using it in the future. So this, for example, we did with the report generation. We really try to make it possible for them to use this in the future again. And I think it kind of worked actually, which is really cool. And then also code that runs locally versus like huge AWS or Microsoft Azure setups. Because I get lost in the AWS console, so I don't expect non-technical people to figure that out. Statistical methods that are explainable over complex machine learning or AI methods. So even when you might have data where you could do like statistical analyses, it's important that, or maybe rather rephrasing, at least you should always like the results, you should always put them in a way that are understandable to the people working at the nonprofit. And then this is maybe just a small point, but we have all those tools for like developer documentation and stuff like that, but for a lot of people, Word just feels more familiar. So you might have to write a Word document, which I don't like, but whatever makes it more sustainable and more impactful and more useful for the nonprofit partner. Okay, so because I'm not such a Python person, right? And I know the R space really well, and I think I have a bias. So a lot of times I set up the projects in R because I'm like, well, I know like I can use Quarto, I can use R Markdown, I know like all the things, but I've heard some things about those Python things as well. So if any of you have worked with those and can tell me a bit more about them later over food, I would be really interested in learning more, because we have a lot of volunteers who want to work in Python and who are very motivated to work in Python. And I think right now I'm kind of like the bottleneck to more Python projects at Correlate. So yeah, please find me later. But yeah, finally, how can you get involved in Data for Good? You have options in Berlin. So Correlate is a remote network first, but we also have local chapters in Berlin and other cities. There's also DSSG Berlin. I can only speak from my knowledge, and so please take this with a grain of salt and rather contact them directly. They are a bit smaller nonprofit or smaller network because they are Berlin focused. They have more of a focus on in-person events, that's my impression, and they have a small dedicated team. And our Correlate is more like a bigger network with a lot of volunteers. We focus more on the remote things, and we have also lots of smaller volunteer-driven teams. I just want to say, like, we are not the only player here in Berlin, so please also check them out. They also do very cool work as well. What can you do if you want to join Correlate? You can do, of course, those projects. There's like some distinctions, like sometimes I organize the projects and it's like we do a call for applications. And then, yeah, there's typically a lot of applications for the Python project, so please don't be disappointed if you don't get in. You can also bring your own project. If you know a nonprofit, then you, of course, get a spot in the team. And you can also do internal projects, which is without a nonprofit. Basically, if you have some cool idea which might be Data for Good without like a partner organization, you can also come to me and we can make it happen. You can join the local chapter, which is more about socializing, a bit like PyLadies, and you also do small projects, and it's more like peer-to-peer exchange. And then there's a whole lot of other volunteer-driven activities, workshops, meetups. We have an expert list if we have freelancers amongst us, like data science freelancers. We have a podcast which is run by volunteers, like Data for Good podcast. We have a mentoring program that is run by volunteers. You can also join me and be a volunteer doing like project management things. Yeah, so lots to do. How would you go about it? You would probably join our newsletter, like old school email. This is where we do like the most important announcements. We have a monthly onboarding call. The next one is on December 5th. And then you would probably join our Slack community, which has like over 1,000 members. And you can do that by emailing to my colleague. And if you know an organization that would benefit from our support, please write me an email or talk to me afterwards. So hope to see you around in the Data for Good space. I don't know, do we also do questions or, okay. Maybe it was very fast and very unfamiliar. Yeah.
Actually, it was super interesting. I was wondering, but I was honest, I think most of the questions I'm going to ask you later, because I think they're rather good questions. But in general, how big are those projects, or like
how long?
Compared to the size of the projects?
Okay,
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was how big the projects are and what kind of is the variance. So most projects there's like very short projects, but typically, so some might only last like a couple of weeks if it's like an emergency thing. But most of the time you would expect like 3 to 6, 7, 8 months. And it's like a pro bono volunteering thing. So you do it I should have mentioned that. But yeah, you do it next to your job or studies, and so it's like time commitment from like 2 to 4 hours per week. So typically have like a weekly or bi-weekly team meeting, and you work towards like the project. And this is sometimes not, we don't have like fixed cycles, like it always has to last three months, always has to last 6 months. So it's a bit flexible, and sometimes there's like this danger that it just keeps running and there's no end. And I try to at some point say, okay, let's wrap it up, folks. But yeah, this is like the typical commitment. The size, the project teams are typically 5 to 6 people, and then 1 or 2 drop out because life happens, and that's okay. But yeah, so 4 to 6 people are typically in a team. And it's also important because we also have some beginners. There's always one spot reserved for like a team trainee, which is someone kind of like a wild card. They don't have to have the skills necessary for the projects, and they can just like come along. And typically they also have great ideas, and they learn to write their own first code and stuff like that. Yeah. So the educational part is really important. So you don't have to be like a super data scientist.
There's a question online.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to read it out loud? It's here.
Can I get involved if I'm still learning Python? Is it a good environment to learn or improve my skills? As I just said, you can definitely join if you are still learning. Again, for the Python projects, there's typically a lot of competition because a lot of people are learning Python for data science. Don't be disappointed if it doesn't work. You can and regarding the environment, we definitely encourage like the more experienced people to be considerate of you and to pass on their knowledge and to have things like pair programming and code reviews. But it always depends on the team. But I would say like we are really welcoming community, and the more experienced people are also very nice people, and not like, oh, you don't, because we always try to remember like we all started there, right? So I would say it's a good environment to improve your skills.
Nice.
Okay. More questions? Or then one more.
How much are the projects described by you from the beginning? I was thinking that you are basically a platform and people can post, I need help, and then other people can counter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this.
No, it's not like this. This is on purpose. So there's also.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was whether how much the projects are like described by me, or like, or whether it's a platform where it's like people can post projects and volunteers can pick them up. And yeah, so we don't do this on purpose because what we have found, or because a lot of nonprofits still, or what we want to do is like we want to do like projects that make sense and that have impact. And a lot of times nonprofits are still in this space, like maybe they just want to do something with data, but I or volunteers, we do like a scoping phase with them to see like what data do you have and what is your impact logic, like your theory of change, and how can data and data science support this theory of change. Because what we don't want to do is just do something with data and then it's just the project is over and the nonprofit is like, okay, nice, but this doesn't help us. So this is on purpose that we don't have just some platform where people can post projects. Yeah, and so most of them go through me. The local chapters also do quite some projects, and then it's a bit more casual. So then it's more like, we talk to them. Okay, let's form a team and just take. So this is like the other route, and this is a bit more informal. But we always pay attention that it's like has impact or the potential for impact, and that it's something that is also sustainable. That we don't build a dashboard that will never run anywhere because there's no infrastructure. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Cool. Then I can get some food.
Okay, thank you. Or yeah. Okay, so thanks everyone. So that will be the end of today's event. And for the people in person, luckily we still have the networking event going on, and still there are sandwiches and drinks left. So feel free to grab them and then approach the speaker that you wanted to ask questions to, but were too shy to ask. So this is your chance. And for the online folks, this is the end of our event. And thank you for joining, and have a lovely evening. Bye.
Also, we have a lot of swag over there and free t-shirts, so have a look and take one.